I'm going to go over something that I did a blog about a few weeks ago. I think it's a pretty decent topic considering time of year and how everything's been going. So Proplanner has invested a lot over the last 2-ish years, making our application easier to get your hands on. If you've ever worked with Proplanner before, it was very easy to get line balancing and time study, but if you wanted to actually play around in Assembly Planner, write work instructions, things like that, you had to go through a whole process of setting up a server, setting up users, all that kind of stuff. So what we've worked on is coming up with a few demo environments that consultants use, we use for demos when we're traveling, that kind of thing. But what we've decided on doing is if we have somebody that wants to play around in the tool, we can set them up a user, they can give it a little run through with us, hopefully kind of guiding along. But basically I'm going to go through the situation where that would happen and what it looks like to do that. So first thing, most people that we come into contact with, your initial setup for work instructions is you have Excel, PowerPoint, text files, things like that. Mostly text-based, a lot of information, not a ton of structure behind it. You can imagine this text file or this Excel file is, it's fine. I mean, it'll work, but it's hard to keep up to date. Hard to know whether you've kept it up to date, that kind of thing. So the idea is, if I'm a guy who works at a company, this is my work instruction, I'm online, I'm searching around trying to find something else that I could use for work instructions. Maybe I land on Proplanner's site. In here, we have lots of information. You can go through assembly process planning, which is basically what I'm going to go through today. Effectively taking your work instructions, your time study, your line balance, and setting it up in Assembly Planner. Just as a more robust way of doing it. You can add parts, bills of material, your processes, pretty much anything you can think of with regards to process planning in an assembly setting, we can do. So I'm going to walk through that. So let's say you go through this site, you say, all right, this looks like it might work for me. I'm going to, I wish I could play with it a little bit before I, really made a decision. What we would ask is that you go to download Assembly Planner, click contact us, fill out name, email, what you want to do. I would put in, you want a session where you might poke around in the demo environment, right? If you do that, what used to happen is you had to get on with us, you had to send us some information, we'd set it up ahead of time, and then we'd do a meeting with you. But you don't actually get to click around at all. You don't actually get to do anything. What we've been trying to do is set up a little bit of a situation where you could actually do some of that. So I recently did this with one of our consultants. I copied the email and sent it to myself. But basically, here's what I sent him. Here are the links that you need. This is your username and password. Don't worry, I'm going to reset this password after this. Basically, you go to the site that we request that you go to. It'll tell you the version that you're going to be on, that you need .NET Framework 4.7.2 for now or higher. If you don't have that, but you're on a computer where you have permissions to upgrade that kind of thing, if you click install, it will upgrade that for you. A lot of places we work with, you're not going to have permissions to upgrade your .NET. So hopefully you have it. If you do think you have it, you can just click this launch button. It'll launch the application. You'll see this thing. Basically what it's doing is it's checking my computer to see if I have connection, if I've already downloaded it, what version I already have. Okay, so it pulled up this login screen. All I have to do is put in the username and password I was given. And it'll load up the application. So big difference here between how things used to work and how things work now. You used to have your own internal servers, set up everything yourself, right? If you looked at this site, it's an Azure website. So if you are allowed, depending on the network that you're on, to get to Azure, which is a secure Microsoft service, you should be able to download this and try it out. Nothing is actually downloaded. It's all cached in temporary files, things like that. So we're not actually installing anything on your machine. Most places don't actually block any of our downloads. If they block anything, it's the .NET Framework update, just because that's generally strictly controlled by IT. If you do have any issues, click this Proplanner customer support. You can get back into our support portal. Otherwise, probably somebody sent you an email with the links. You can always just reply back to that and say, I had this problem while I was trying to download the software. It's probably something to do with, permissions on your network, something like that. But assuming you get to this point, there's a lot of buttons in here. Depending on what you're doing, we will probably show and hide different buttons after having met with you once or twice. We'll know which ones you need, which ones you don't. I have everything, but most people first time in will have component, routing, operation, activity, and plant at least. So component is effectively your parts, your bill of material. I'll just do a quick search, just a list of all the parts in my system that I've imported to this point. Given that this is a demo environment, this could change randomly as people add and delete parts out of the system. If you want to add your parts into the system, I have other webinars about that. Basically, there's an import that you can do. Generally, when we get into an actual setup, we'll have interfaces that bring this kind of data in, but we'll store an EBOM, an MBOM, all the item information that you might want. But to start, pretty much all you need to do is import your item numbers. If you really want to create an item for use in work instructions, what you can do is right click, add new, create your new item, add your description. It'll create your item. Then I can get into adding the bill of material. So I'm going to check the item out, meaning I want to change it. And then pretty much right click, add, insert, existing, new text. I would do existing or new. Most of my items are in here. So Just add a few as an example. And there I have a bill of material. I can change my sequence numbers, my quantities, whatever. Again, if you want to do a big upload of multiple bills of material, there's an import module where you can do just a big Excel sheet of parent, child, parent, child, parent, child, over and over with quantities, dates, sequence numbers. It's pretty straightforward. And like I said, there are other videos on it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of that, but getting your bill of material in here, not hard. If you are worried about the cloud, you can always just like randomize the numbers, randomize the descriptions, and it does the same thing. But the idea of the cloud demo environment is just to let you play around a little bit. So you can use our existing stuff, whatever you want to do. Okay, so if you've been freshly given access to this, you probably won't have any of these routings showing up. Routing is effectively a line within Assembly Planner. Generally what we say is it's a physical line, a physical space on the shop floor, ideally with a consistent tack time across it. Doesn't have to be that way. It's just simpler if it is. So when you go in here and look, likely these will not be here. Depends when the last time we refreshed is as well. There might be some, there might not be. But for safety's sake, I would create a new one if I was a brand new user. Create my own line by right-clicking, create add new. Then you search for it. As a note, it'll always do wildcard at the end of any search you do. So I just did J, brings up everything that starts with the J. Okay. So you'll see what it wants me to do is add sequence numbers, descriptions, and work centers. Right now, I already have all these work centers in here. If you want to use those, you can. Those are all based on different demos I've done. So line 10.7 is what this station is in my Excel that I'm basing this off of. So I am going to go to plant. I'm going to look, I already have line 10.7 here. If I didn't, all you have to do is go to the ID column, paste in from Excel a list of stations that you might want to use, stations and descriptions, hit save, and it'll save. See, my line 10.7 is right here. So what I did originally was I just created 1 through 15, pasted them all in at once, and then they're all ready for use in routing. So now that I've done that, my sequence number is going to be 10.7. I'm going to call it pod sub. Again, that's from my Excel. This is called the pod sub. Yeah. And then my work center is 10.7. If I don't have effective dates, which when you're just messing around in here, you won't, you can just leave those blank, hit save, and it will default everything blank. Just as a note, we generally set default equals today from today. So that's something that you need to be aware of generally in our system is what the defaults are. Now that I've created that, I have a station, I need to fill it with work. So I go in here, double click on a row to go in, or you can right click and hit open. Once I'm in here, same kind of deal. We're just popping through a tree structure. So now I'm in Jared test 10.7, and I'm looking at my activity list. Right now it's blank. I have sequence number, description, estimated time, which is the direct entry of time. We have 3 different types of time. Estimated time is direct entry. Right now we have it set to seconds. Calculated time is based on doing a time study using an MTM standard. And observed time is doing a time study either by video or stopwatch study. But if you have time saved in Excel somewhere, estimated time is what we would use to just get them in. All of our sheets like this are editable and customizable. So if you right click, go to customize view, you can see we have all these fields. Most of them are unnecessary. Like I said, we have all the different time fields, which you won't be able to use. PPE, images, work zones, different things that we use later on. So I already had mine set up. I'm gonna keep it the same. Basically what I need to do is transfer data from this Excel into that system. So I'm gonna look at my element as my sequence number, which I know, having done this before, I have some duplicates because I have sub activities. So I'm gonna stop at 770 for now. I'll show you how I would handle that. So I have 770. Actually, no. I'm gonna create a filter because what I want is all of my tasks that have time can be their own task. Everything else is a sub step. So I've got all these elements. They all have time, they all have descriptions. I go in, I say my element number is my sequence number. My minutes, which I'm not going to deal with this right now, but I'm going to say these are seconds. So I have a time on each of these. And then I have a description of the element to put right here. Some of them are blank. I'll have to deal with those later. Review my sheet a little bit. I did see that I had an operator in here, operator 18. Now that I put that in there, I can drag down like Excel. It'll populate 18 there. And I'm actually going to check this box for all these. This should be set up to check by default, but just in case it's not, I'm going to do it. Okay, so I've got most of my information set up. I hit save. What it's going to do is go through, make sure I have everything filled out, fill out any defaults that it needs. So you'll see an ID comes in, unique key in our system. It's going to say it's at 10.7, 750, and it's effective from the 26th through 2029. Okay, so that's how you get a general sheet. If you want to see what that looks like as a work instruction, you can hit reports, deployment. For now, I'm going to do process details. Whole bunch of filters in here for now. You can ignore most of them, but effectively the one you would most likely use is station operator filter while you're just messing around. So if I go in, run my report, I've already got a list of things that I need to do for this station as this operator and the total time. What I'm missing is my tools and my parts. So I'm going to go in and show how to do this for 1 or 2 activities, and then just know that it's either a repetitive process or something we could import if we do have some kind of strict logic to follow. So I'm going to bring back my sub steps, and I'm going to focus on 770. Yeah, okay. I'm picking 770 just because I know these 2 work steps are there, and it has parts that I want to use. I could also choose any of these with parts. This would be a very simple one. But I like that this one has multiple notes in it. So I'm going to grab these 2 notes. I'm going to go find my 770. Double click again to get into it, or right click and hit open. Go to my work steps. Paste in my 2 notes. Work step generally is your individual steps in order to create, or in order to fill this description. So these are just notes. That's the way I've chosen to do it, because that's pretty much how this work instruction was set up. It has a big task and then notes underneath. It could be a big task and then the small steps that make up that bigger task. Just depends on the different uses and how your existing system is set up. So I've got my work steps. I want to go and input my parts. So I go to consumption. In consumption, I know I've got these part numbers. So I'm going to copy those, put those in part ID. And I think these are the parents. So I'm going to put those in parent ID. And then this is the quantity. Put that in the quantity column. I'm going to ignore the rest of this. This is all data capture stuff. So on the shop floor, do I need to scan the part? Do I need to add a serial number to the part? Things like that. For now, I'm just going to hit save. Defaults the order to 1, so they're all equal. I could change that if I want to, so that this one shows up first, second, third. If you do want something like storage location, I can add that in. Again, the sheets are all customizable, so this would be something maybe you ask us what field would be best for this type of thing. This is a storage location, so what I'm going to add is P location, as in picking location. Paste that in there. So now I've got picking location. So I've got all that information. I've got parts, I've got tools. Now, if I go to reports, deployment, and I go to, I'll do a station parts report first, just to demonstrate this part. Again, a lot of the same filters, not gonna worry about that for now. It shows me all the parts that I need at this station and what their picking locations are. I don't have descriptions because I haven't created these parts technically yet, but that would have been in the bill of material portion that I showed earlier. So assuming that, you can have picking location, consuming location, or you can go in and run a work instruction, which will be pretty underwhelming because we don't have images yet. But I run my work instruction. If I get to my 770, you'll see all these bottom steps are blank. But when I get to my 770, I should have part numbers. Yeah, 770. And I've got my notes. So you can imagine what you can do is set this up. There's all kinds of different details you can get into. So you can set this up with all your part numbers, and it can be for one product, right? You can also go in and say, this activity is only for some specific model, right? So I go in here, model option mapping. I'm just going to pick a random model. So I hit add model. This is only for 2020 models. Actually, this is for the DR0 MXT. I already created that. So this is for this model, right? And now if I run a report, it will only select the assembly processes, parts, tools that have to do with that model. So if I run it from activity, it's going to filter the parts. If I run it from the station, it's going to filter the processes, the parts, the time. If I run it from the routing, it's going to filter the stations, the processes, and the parts, and the time. Based on the model, based on the option, based on the date, based on whatever you happen to have set up. Last thing is, I did say that that was boring because it doesn't have an image. So I did create an image for this. It's not super exciting. It's just a random 3D gas tank assembly, I think. So I load the image in by hitting import, load the image. We do have a nice image editor that I think somebody did a blog post about a couple weeks ago. So you can go check that out. But basically what I need to do is say that image needs to show up anytime that work step shows up. I run my report again. And then I have an image. My resolution wasn't great, but I have an image, I have my parts, I have my tool, or I have my steps, in this case, my notes. So pretty straightforward. You can go through and do this on each of these sequence numbers. It's pretty repetitive, but as you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple. If you can come up with again, a standard like format in Excel, generally we can do an import pretty easily. But this is, again, as a demo, just kind of a way to poke around and see where your fields might fit, if it's a good fit for you, if it makes sense to come up with a standard so that you can import, or if you just rewrite most of it. Once you're done with all this, just so you guys can see it, the end goal is you go in, you fill out a lot of this. You go to our data management, our publishing module. Not going to go through all this, but basically you go in and you publish each routing, the models you want to publish it for, the stations you want to publish it for, with the end goal being that you can go to that second link that I showed. So in here, I showed this link that I haven't clicked on yet. It says it's the MES viewer in Assembly Planner. It is our execution system. So part tracking, shop floor stuff, right? We have one of those hooked up that you can get to. So you recognize these models as the ones I didn't choose from a different demo of mine. But we have this set up so that you can publish. You go in, you choose your line, choose your station, choose your operator. Been too long since I logged in. Okay. So you choose your line, your station, your operator. And what you can do is go in and see the instructions you've created. You can't sign on. We have that disabled for the demo version. But you can go in here, you can view everything. Picked a bad example that doesn't really have any images. This is all covered in different videos, but effectively you can add images, you can have all this data collection stuff, type in dimensions, pass fail, deviations, all kinds of good stuff. Attach drawing, attach an image. We do have customers that do videos, PPE requirements, quality and safety notes, pretty much anything you can think of, again, that people do on a shop floor, you can probably do in here somewhere. So this is the end goal. You get to the point where you can author from Excel, Access, something like that, push that all into Assembly Planner. And then at some point you get to where you can track everything on the floor by operator, whether they're using it or not. There is the intermediate step of, being able to print out reports. Like I showed the parts report, there's a tools report, work instruction report. That's pretty much, that's the way we used to do everything. We're moving more and more into the shop floor viewer, basically as screens become cheaper. So shop floor viewer MES is our best output, providing the most value. But if you do just want to print reports, we can do that too. So again, this is all on Azure. You can get to it without downloading anything really, assuming you have the right Microsoft frameworks and everything, which aren't super new. It just depends on how your company runs, updates. So assuming you have all that, you can basically get in, get on the phone with one of us, play around a little bit, try to translate your work instructions into our system, and then see what it might look like going forward. Again, a lot of options, a lot of different fields. You can add parts, you can add tools, you cannot. You can add model option mapping, you cannot. You can add dates, you cannot. You can add orders all your own, or you cannot. All up to you. Pretty much all able to be done out of the box without any changes to the system. Changes to the system coming later if you do have an actual system set up for you, only you, then configuration can start happening. But getting into one of these demo environments has become a lot easier. We started out doing it with universities and consultants, went pretty well. So we've set up a couple of them for just general use by people who want to try it out, or again, consultants who might want to show it to somebody and have them try it out. So thank you for sitting there and listening. If you do want to see my detailed version of this, I did do a blog post about it a few weeks ago. So it's in What's New, getting started, same kind of deal, running through it. And then there's a video at the end of me going through it. So thanks again.